Heartbroken about the outcome of the US elections? You are certainly not alone. I truly care about America because I have so many friends and family members living in the States. What happens in America also inevitably has a huge geopolitical and economic impact on all parts of the world. Over the course of the years, I've seen long-term friendships, marriages, and even family breakups triggered over this political divide. I have Democrat and Republican friends and have seen over the years an increasing polarization. The lack of civil discourse, mudslinging, and throwing about of personal insults on social media is simply unprecedented. I've been trying to wrap my mind around an answer to the outcome of this election. And I've heard all the arguments of those experts saying it's the economy, the gender divide, abortion, um, etc., etc. But does that explain why decent, normal, intelligent people believe those obvious lies, distortions, apocalyptic visions, and outlandish promises of the political demagogues? Does this explain why the very people, the working class poor, suffering the most from the inequality of wealth distribution, vote for the very people creating tax breaks for the most wealthy? There is more to it than simply meets the eye. We need to follow the money on who is actually financing election campaigns of the political demagogues and in some cases even political clowns. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel are just two of the mostly 150 billionaire families in the United States who injected the incredible sum of nearly $2 billion collectively into the 2024 elections. This was $700 million more than in the last elections. Over two-thirds of this money went to the Republican Party and ultra-conservative causes, the great bulk of the money in support of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. More than 3 times as much as money going to Vice President Kamala Harris. This, according to the Americans for Tax Fairness Organization. It poses the question on the real fairness of democratic elections in the United States. This astronomical sum could have positively impacted the lives of millions upon millions of people in sectors such as health, education, or the environment. Recently, I've had some conversations with avid supporters of Hungary's autocratic leader Viktor Orban, Turkish leader Recep Erdogan, and even Russia's Vladimir Putin. And I've asked these people, why do you support a dictator who puts his opponents into jail, shuts down the opposition press, and generally rules at whim? The response was either, well, those are all lies, it's all rubbish, or he's our man because he's a strong leader and we need strong leaders during this time. Not once did I hear any rational, logical argument that makes sense. So what we are seeing is a fallback into tribalism. People will support their guy, the political party or movement, no matter what, if they have the perception that he is one of us. He's from our tribe. They will find the most weird excuses in explaining contradictory, inflammatory statements, misbehavior, and even criminal conduct. At the same time, humanity has never before been in a better place. Compared to the lives of our forefathers, we are currently experiencing unprecedented technological and medical advances. Progress has been made on nearly all levels, including life expectancy, education, poverty, and disease compared to the lives of people a century or 2 centuries ago. Not by any means have we seen wars at the scale of World War I and World War II during the past 50 years. And all the more astounding is that perceptions don't match this reality. Since 2006, we've been seeing a consistent decline in global democracy across a range of countries, according to the organization Freedom House. Populist leaders in Europe, the United States, Latin America, and India have exploited a rapid decline in trust of public institutions, legacy media, and democratic principles. Annual reports indicate decreasing scores for political rights, civil liberties across a range of countries, especially in the newer democracies such as Hungary, where an autocratic leader has found a loophole in the constitution to entrench power, weaken checks and balances, and suppressing the opposition or litigating opposition media into bankruptcy. We've witnessed a troubling surge in violent conflicts during the past year, ranging from devastating civil wars in Africa to appalling human rights violations in the Middle East and Ukraine. In the face of such blatant disregard for the fundamental principles of humanity, we are compelled to reaffirm and fortify our own core values and principles. The great Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung often referred to the lack of self-awareness and understanding of one's own shadows and dark demons as possibly the greatest threat to humanity. He wrote that it's not famine, not earthquakes, not microbes, not cancer, but man himself who is his greatest danger, for the simple reason that there is no adequate protection against psychological epidemics, which are infinitely more devastating than the worst of natural catastrophes. And there are historical precedents where mass madness in the form of fanaticism gripped entire populations, such as in Nazi Germany during the 1930s and during the witch hunts and inquisitions of the Middle Ages. Some villages in Europe literally had their entire female populations wiped out by a frenzy of witch burning. Jung described the rise of fascism in Germany as nothing less than an outbreak of epidemic insanity. No one knew what was happening, least of all the Germans, who allowed themselves to be driven to the slaughterhouse by their leading psychopath, like hypnotized sheep. There is a thin veneer between civilized, decent behavior and the tipping point into the darkest shadows of human nature. And we are seeing a lot of this playing out in the ecosystem of social media. The radical fanaticism, by definition, is the unquestioning devotion to a particular belief, ideology, or cause. When a person becomes a radical fanatic, the behavior and thought patterns can significantly change, and these changes can be reflected in brain activity, like exposure to extremist ideology and constant reinforcement of such beliefs reshapes neural pathways, strengthening connections related to those. And this is especially the case when individuals are exposed to repeated propaganda from information silos that blend out all alternative views or perspective. Fanaticism involves heightened emotionalization through fear, anger, and sense of righteousness. The intensity of such emotions shuts off the prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and thought, activating instead the brain's animal reptilian region, responsible for freeze, fight, or flight response. You are literally then running on automatic and no longer in charge of your thoughts and behavior. Radical fanatics generally exhibit confirmation bias, interpreting information in such a way that confirms existing beliefs and favoring their own group, dehumanizing those outside that group. Being part of a radical group can also trigger the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine, creating a sense of reward and belonging that reinforces the behavior and beliefs associated with that group or tribe. The emergence of radical behavior and extremist ideology in societies has historically been an incremental and gradual process, often taking decades to fully manifest itself. However, the advent of social media, particularly those lacking stringent checks and balances to curb fake news and disinformation, has injected a particularly potent accelerant into an already poisonous mix. Social media is providing the platform to dangerous individuals with psychopathic tendencies, malignant narcissism, and fanatical beliefs, allowing toxic ideology to spread far and wide at an alarming speed. And in the face of this escalating peril posed by a contemporary political narrative, it's imperative to act as vigilant guardians of the mind. We must exercise heightened caution, particularly regarding politicians and news outlets spreading disinformation, hatred, division, anger, fear, and discontent. These forces are driven by a sinister agenda and are actively seeking to manipulate you. Genuine freedom and happiness spring from the bedrock of inner tranquility, gratitude, tolerance, and kindness. True self-love embraces inclusivity, recognizes the inherent worth of all individuals, and eschews exclusivity. In nurturing these qualities within you, you and in your community, you fortify your mind against the corrosive influence of animosity and discord, fostering a more compassionate and harmonious world for yourself and everyone else. If you are heartbroken and struggling with all these developments, you need to remind yourself that you are here for a purpose. You cannot change external events outside your control. At the same time, you have a duty to stand up for your values, the values of positivity, love, kindness, and tolerance. It's only these values that create a better world for all. As Jung is quoted as saying, "Where love rules, there is no will to power. Where power predominates, there love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other."